Retro Gaming Goth here, and I am back with a new video for you guys. And today I'm going to be talking about the Dinomist deck. And I know I haven't done a deck review for quite some time, but if you've seen all my previous videos and new videos up to now, you'll have noticed that a deck review really wasn't happening, especially with Master Duel being a huge part of my life right now, and building decks on there and showing off all the duels and all the victories I got from all those iconic and obscure type decks. I thought maybe I'll give that a little bit of a break and just give you guys a deck review on a deck which, I am not going to lie to you, literally cost me hardly any money at all. And Dinomist are, I don't know much about all the other pendulum cards out there, but I'm pretty sure Dinomist is one of the strongest archetypes pendulum wise, and honestly there is just so much potential with this deck. It literally can just spam out one Dinomist monster right after another and literally can get a victory more or less every single time. I'm pretty sure that there's more than one Dinomist deck out there. In fact, there's probably a dozen. One thing I will mention, there is a new Dinomist card, Draco Summit or other, I'm not too sure. Unfortunately, that card is not in this deck because I currently don't have any. But no word of a lie, this deck came from a shop in my local city, town centre, called The Vault. Be sure to check that place out, guys, because if you live in the local area. The point is, I got this deck from the Vault, and literally every card inside, 10 pence a piece. This deck literally is a 40 card deck, so yeah, it literally cost me about £4. Let's get this deck review on the way, and if you like the channel, please hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video like this, and be sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you do enjoy this. I should also mention that despite the fact this is just the deck itself, it does play really well, and I'm going to show you all very shortly what I mean. So the first cards I've got on this list, I have 3 Dinomist Rexes. Now, there's something I also need to mention just while we're at this. Most of these Dinomist cards, in fact, nearly 50% of them, in fact, are pendulum scale of 6, while the other pendulum scale is of 3, like I'm going to show you right now with this card here. And the good thing about that is that all these Dinomist cards, based on their pendulum effects being between pendulum scale settings, whatever, being between 6 and 3, all these Dinomist cards are level 5s and 4s. So it's very easy to summon these cards out from the hand or from the extra deck. But nevertheless, Dinomist Rex is probably the only super rare card out of the entire pile. And the good thing about these pendulum cards is, while they're in the pendulum scale, the 6 rated one, while this card is in the pendulum zone, you can negate the activation of a card or effect that targets another Dinomist card you control, then destroy this card. Whereas the pendulum scale 3 cards, if another Dinomist monster would be destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Each of these monsters obviously have their own typical effects. Dinomist Rex has one of 2. Basically, if this card attacks at the end of damage step, tribute another Dinomist monster and apply one of the following effects. The first one being, this card can make a second attack on an opponent's monster in a row, and if it attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. The second bullet point effect is, shuffle one card from your opponent's hand at random or on their side of the field into the deck, and then this card gains 100 extra attack. So not much with the power gain part of the effect. The whole shuffling a card from your opponent's side of the field or their hand is pretty unique, because it pretty much dismantles your opponent, but obviously it costs you a Dinomist. But the idea of piercing damage as well, that's not too bad either. So yeah, 3 of those, and as you already know, I've shown you these ones just to get some explanations out of the way, although I don't know why I need to explain it, because anybody who's played this game for a long time now, who is familiar with pendulum, should know, or I presume they would know, how pendulums work. But for those who don't, I thought I'd get it out of the way. Next, we have 3 Dinomist Terrans. I think I'm announcing these names right, by the way, because some of these don't exactly state what they are. I mean, you've got the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you've got the Pterodactyl, you've got other dinosaur-related Dinomist cards in this deck, but for some reason their names are altered. So if I do mispronounce them, I do apologise. Dinomist Terran. Now, this card is one of my favourites out of the Dinomist collection. On the basis that when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one Dinomist card from deck to hand. With a steady attack of 1800, it can pretty much get over any monster in a way. But the idea of adding a Dinomist card, and there's no word of a lie, about 37, I think, of these cards are all Dinomist. So this card literally targets the majority of the deck. I think there's literally, or it might be 38 cards actually. I did double check and count these cards because I'm not gonna lie, there was a comment mentioned on a previous video of mine about me not being able to count how many cards was in a deck. Well, that was a complete misunderstanding anyway, but nonetheless, I'm pretty sure there's definitely 40 cards in this deck. I did kind of count them before we started. So Terran literally lets you search out a Dinomist card, and there's nothing really else to mention to that effect. And it is one of my favorites just because of that. Well, actually, to be fair, my next Dinomist card is actually one of my favorite dinosaurs in general. 3 Dinomist Spinos. So, part of the Spinosaurus aegypticus dinosaur breed. God, that's a mouthful, and that's no pun intended. It's a big beast of a dinosaur. So this card is honestly, I think it's actually the strongest attack-based monster out of the entire Dinomist set. With 2500 attack, it's actually stronger than the Rex. Well, has to be, because Spinosaurs are typically bigger, stronger, and slightly more fearsome than the T-Rex, even though the T-Rex is the king of the dinosaurs. There's always going to be that one that tries to dominate over it. So, Dinomist Spinos has a very similar effect to Dinomist Rex when you tribute a Dinomist monster to then activate one of the following bullet point effects. And they are, the first one is this card can attack directly, so that's not too bad. You sacrifice one of your weaker Dinomist cards and you can attack directly with this card, so that's pretty cool because it's a 25 attack. But the other good thing to it is that if you do tribute a Dinomist monster, this card can make a second attack during each battle phase. So with a 2500 attack, you could just sacrifice one of your weaker Dinomist monsters and just get over potentially 2 monsters that have less attack or less defense than Dinomist Spinos. So yes, that's all I can say about that one. Now, I did mention that I do love Terran, I love the T-Rex, and I love Spinos. In fact, to be honest, I like all the dinosaurs. This one, however, is something that struck a little bit harder to me when I was younger. I actually did a little bit of a history lesson on this one in particular. Dinomist Ceratops. Well, not this card in particular, but the dinosaur it's based on, which is a Triceratops. So, Dinomist Ceratops, and again, I've already mentioned the pendulum effect, so if you see the pendulum scale 6 or 3, just go back a few minutes and yeah, I don't have to read that bit of the effect again, because all the Dinomists, depending if they're 3 or 6, have the same pendulum effect, where it can basically protect one of your Dinomist cards depending on how they're going to get destroyed. But each one is different. Their normal effect, if all monsters you control are Dinomists, in brackets minimum 1, and none are Dinomist Ceratops, you can special summon this card from your hand. So essentially, it's a Cyber Dragon card with a, well, in the sense that it's a 2100 attack monster and it can special summon itself, only based on the fact that you need another Dinomist monsters and basically don't control another Ceratops. So yeah, you can special summon this card from your hand. So yeah. Right, next we have, as soon as I get that one card out there separate. We have Dinomist Brachion. I think that's pronounced. Yeah, Dinomist Brachion. So, if you do not control Dinomist Brachion in the monster zone, and your opponent controls a monster that has a higher attack on the field, even if it is tied, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's essentially like Ceratops, slightly weaker, a little bit more conditional, but nonetheless, it's just a nice monster to special summon out to the field with 2k attack. And that's all I have to say about that. Now, this card is definitely a good card for the Dinomist set, and I'll try and explain why. Dinomist Plesios. Now, this isn't a particularly strong monster, but it is a very unique one because all monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Dinomist card you control. So, based on that, if I am okay with math, if you include the field spell and you had a field zone, spells, traps, and monsters completely full of Dinomist cards, your opponent essentially will monsters will lose about 1100 attack strength and defense. And the field spell itself, which I will get to very shortly, boosts all your Dinomist by 300 extra attack. This card is good because there's a lot of monsters in the game where you really do need to bring their strength down. And that's one thing this deck will lack if you come up against a monster that is beefier than 2500 and has abilities that can pretty much annihilate your deck. Whereas this card, Plesios, will just say, I'm going to weaken you slightly. But nonetheless, it's a good card for that because opening hands, yeah, can perform OTKs, but when the build is just building up and you pretty much degrade your opponent's monsters to essentially less attack points than what your Dinomists are, you're pretty much good for the game. And there's a lot of cards in this deck that can end up being face up. For starters, you'd have your 2 pendulum cards, you'd have potentially your field spell if you run it, you'd have all the essential Dinomist monsters you presumably special summon to the field using the pendulum scales effects. So that's openly potentially about 4 to 5 monsters depending on how the board is set and how long the game's gone on. So if you've got a couple of pendulums in your extra deck side of things and you've got a few in your hand, then yeah, you could summon out a whole army of Dinomists. Next we have Dinomist Ankylos. Oh, I don't know. A little bit ragged in the corner there, but considering I got these from a shop that literally handles second-hand cards, and I'm not going to lie, these cards aren't exactly in the worst condition. I think that one is just the only one that's got visible markings. I really should put these in sleeves, but with that many decks I've got and very limited sleeves, I could go to the shop and buy some, but, well, I haven't got around to it yet. So, yeah, Dinomist Ankylos, or Ankylos, whatever. Banishes any monster destroyed by battle with a Dinomist monster you control. So, a nice 2k defense. The banishing side of things is helpful if you can get over your monster. Your opponent's monster. Sorry, my throat's a little bit tickly. I couldn't talk just then. But yeah, the idea of banishing monsters is pretty good, especially if you need to banish them, and they're not much help for you if they're in your opponent's graveyard. But yeah, nonetheless, that's what that does. Now, I don't consider this to be the best of the Dinomist family, but nevertheless, it has actually helped me a couple of times, even though I've never really took much notice on its ability, but this is what it is. Dinomist Stegosaur. So Stegosaur, if another pendulum monster you control battles an opponent's monster after damage calculation, you can destroy those monsters. So, okay, not directly targeted towards the Dinomist themselves, other than the fact it is a Dinomist card, but the ability itself doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a Dinomist pendulum monster. It could just be any pendulum monster that battles your opponent's monsters. And after damage calculation, you can just destroy it. So there's been quite a few times I've been up against a scenario where I needed to destroy a monster and I just couldn't by any means. But this card literally does destroy it after damage calculation. So that can be quite helpful. Now, the field spell. As soon as I get my hands on all 3 of them. Dynamic Power Lord. I am not going to lie on how much this card is helpful. I am very sorry if the camera is blurring out these cards. All Dinomist monsters gain 300 attack and defense. If a Dinomist monster you control battles an opponent, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of damage step. That is really helpful because obviously not only does it boost up your monsters, it prevents your opponent from virtually activating anything while your Dinomists are declaring the attacks. And that literally opens up an opportunity for all your Dinomists to spam all their abilities if you've got an army of them on the field. And I'm not even kidding yet, it literally will lead to an OTK. So yeah, that's basically that. The next card we have, or cards, is Dinomist Charge. I really love this card because it took me a while to get used to its abilities, but now that I've gotten used to it, it is really helpful. For one, it's a searcher. So when this card is activated, you can add one Dinomist monster from your deck to your hand, and that's very, very useful. Because when I mentioned about the previous Dinomist cards that I've already showed you, this card will literally get you any Dinomist monster you want from your deck the moment the card is activated. But the more unique side of it is its next ability. Once per turn, if a Dinomist card or cards is added from the field to your extra deck face up, add one of those cards to your hand. Now, if you've got a pendulum scale built between 3 and 6 with the Dinomist cards, yeah, you can special summon the Dinomist from the extra deck, but more importantly, this card will put it back into your hand, replenishing your hand, because obviously playing 2 cards from your hand straight away and then summoning an army of Dinomist cards is fine if you've got a backup. Now, this card literally will let you put those cards back from the extra deck straight to your hand, so you don't have to special summon them from the extra deck, because the extra deck summoning part of things is limited. Whereas your hand, if it's the more cards you got in your hand and you've got the scale on the field, the better for you, because you can just summon them out. So I really do like Dinomist Charge for that reason. Now, getting to the only card in the deck that is not Dinomist related, but it's very beneficial. 2 limiter removals. Given the fact that all these Dinomist monsters are in fact machines, limiter removal doubles all machines' current attack points until the end phase, but they are destroyed afterwards. So if you can build a pendulum scale and summon out as many Dinomists as you want, or potentially can, this card will literally double their attack points. And if you've got like 2 Spinos on the field and, I don't know, 1 Rex, that is literally OTK, because damage calculation will be more than 8,000 at least. But even if you, just imagine playing a whole hand of Dinomist cards and this card was your last card to play. Even your weakest one will be, I think it was Ankylos, that was the weakest one, 3,000 attacks straight off the bat, whereas the most powerful one will be nearly 5,000. Play 2 of these, I don't even think I can handle that capability of power, because that is just outrageous. Next, we have probably the key to this deck, and I did only run 2 until I found that 3 was actually more beneficial. Yeah, it might be a little bit cloggy, but essentially the deck actually works better if you run 3. Dinomist Howling. Now, when this card is activated, you can place 1 or 2 Dinomist pendulum monsters from your deck in your pendulum zone, but you cannot pendulum summon monsters until the end of the next turn except Dinomist monsters, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, if this already face-up card is in your spell and trap card zone, you contribute 1 Dinomist monster, then target one card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. So even if you had enough Dinomists or didn't have enough Dinomists in your hand to build the pendulum scale, this card will do the job for you. As soon as you play it, 1 to 2 Dinomists in both sides of the pendulum zones, and it even has an ability that bounces your opponent's cards back. So that itself is pretty damn good. So not much really to say about that, but again, it's another face-up Dinomist card, so Plesios. Get these out of the way. Next. Now, this is a good card if you can run enough room in your hand. It's basically just a quick excuse just to get Dinomist out of the deck. Dinomist Rush. As I mentioned, special summons 1 Dinomist monster from the deck, and if you do, it is unaffected by other card effects. The only downside to it is that you have to destroy the card summoned at the end phase, but you can only activate one of these trap cards once per turn anyway. But ideally, it'll summon out any of your Dinomist monsters straight out of your deck and straight to the field, and it's unaffected by card effects, which is really, really helpful. And even if it does get destroyed, if you've got the pendulum scale, like I've said a gajillion times, you can just special summon that monster back. And if you have Dinomist Charge face up on the field, it'll go straight to your hand. So essentially, you're summoning out a monster, it's unaffected by cards, it goes into the pendulum scale when it's just the extra deck when it's destroyed, and it can even come back to your hand if you've got Dinomist Charge. So yeah, it basically goes all over the shop. Now, this is the card I did run 3 of until I found out 3 Dinomist Holdings was better than running 3 of these, but in honour of the Dinomist, and it's not the best trap card, but it is Dinomist nonetheless. Dinomist Eruption. Now, the Dinomist monster, stroke monsters, you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect. Target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it. There's a lot of cards that do this, where one of your cards is destroyed. You can use this trap card and basically just destroy something of your opponent's. But given the fact that you could potentially summon a lot of Dinomist cards on the field, it's really not a massive loss. But if you're limited for Dinomist arsenals, then yeah, this card really isn't that helpful. Nonetheless, it's a nice little trap card, and again, it's a Dinomist card, so how the hell can I argue with that? So guys, what do you think of the deck? Personally, I think I already could answer a few of these questions. You know, why is there not an extra deck? Why is there not a side deck? Why is there not better cards in the deck? Essentially, this deck could possibly be the worst deck you've ever seen in your life. But I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, you could potentially run quite a few extra deck cards. Links, Xyz. Yeah, you could run all that. It really won't make a difference to me, because at the end of the day, this deck, for the money I got, for the amount of money I got it for, I really can't argue with it. And yes, I do have a lot of cards that will support this deck, but essentially, this deck alone, without any extra deck support, and without any other staple or generic cards that basically help out machine water type cards, pendulum monsters in general, honestly, this deck has won so many battles. It has gone up against some of the most competitive decks. It's gone up against some of the weakest decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've even built this deck on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And quite honestly, the amount of spamming and summoning and bouncing and just overall gameplay that this deck literally did, I will continue to play the deck as it is until further notice. And yeah, there is a new Dinomist card out there. I don't own it, unfortunately. But then, as far as I'm aware, Master Duel doesn't have it either. So I can't really include the card in this deck as much as I want to. And to prove my point, keep watching this video, because in the next clip I'm about to show you is going to be basically what I've been doing for the past few videos that I've made and posted all over YouTube. So if you like the video, be sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Check in for the part 2 version of this Dinomist review. Enjoy.
alternative in another image altogether. And I will call this not the ceramic image, the fully automatic image,